Hello, welcome. My name is SlugMTG, and today is going to be a bit more casual, laid-back discussion video centered around the recent downprints from Double Masters and just kind of talk about the meta and whatnot. But before we get started, I did want to make a quick mention. I am almost at 100 subscribers, and I do plan to make a special little video for that. And I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to include something like a Q&A, but I figured I could at least include a small one at the end of the video. So if you guys do have any questions for a small Q&A, just go ahead and leave them down in the comments, and maybe a little note that it's for the Q&A, because knowing me, I'll just see the question and I'll just answer it in the reply, and I might be a little forgetful. But to help me so I don't forget that I specifically asked for this, if you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comments down below and I will answer them for my 100 subscriber video. Quite exciting. Just wanted to throw that out there. And moving on to the topic that you guys are really here for, the Double Master reprints were spoiled a few days ago, and we had some pretty exciting downshifts. Quite a lot of downshifts, actually. Not all of them good, but we got some really good downshifts. And the first one I want to talk about is going to be the one that's probably the most hyped, the most talked about, and that is Myr Retriever. The main reason why Myr Retriever is so talked about and so hyped is because it enables a brand new combo deck in the format between Myr Retriever, Astronaut's Altar, and either something like Reckless Fireweaver or Disciple of the Vault, because as long as you have 2 copies of Myr Retriever, you can sacrifice one Astronaut's Altar, get the 2 mana, the first Myr Retriever goes into the graveyard, then you sacrifice the second one, get 2 more mana, and the second one goes into the graveyard, the ability triggers, and you get the first Myr Retriever back into your hand, and then using the mana that you stocked up with Astronaut's Altar, you play the first Myr Retriever, you sacrifice it again, grab the second one, using that mana, play the second one, sacrifice it, grabbing the first one back, and so on and so forth. It creates an infinite loop of artifact creatures entering and leaving the battlefield, so anything that really takes advantage of artifacts or creatures entering or leaving can abuse that. Right now, that is Reckless Fireweaver and Disciple of the Vault, with Disciple of the Vault being the main win condition. I honestly feel like this deck is going to be very strong for a couple different reasons. The first one is that I don't know how you're going to get rid of the pieces, because pretty much all artifact hate that is in people's sideboard, or some even main board, is destroy, and Myr Retriever grabs things back from the graveyard. So going up against this deck, you're either going to need both artifact and graveyard hate, or answers that specifically exile to get rid of them permanently. Either way, it's not going to be optimal, and I think the biggest way to win against this deck is just going to hope that you slow them down just enough to squeak out a win by them. Given that it's a 3-card combo that's going to be kind of hard to get rid of all the pieces for, I think this has the potential to be a very real deck in Pauper, just given how naturally resilient it is. The most expensive piece is Astronaut's Altar at 3 mana, so the deck can go off pretty early. So coupled with that and the fact that it's so resilient, I think it could be a real force in the metagame. That being said, I don't think we're going to see this combo often at all, at least to start out with. My main reasons for that is that Pauper is mainly an online format, meaning that Magic Online is, especially nowadays, really the only way to play Pauper for a lot of people. And this deck is extremely click intensive, because every single action you're doing, you're going to have to click to put things in place. And if the games are going long, then you have a real chance of just running out of time and not being able to pull off your combo. And the fact that a lot of people just find click intensive combos to be really annoying to pilot, I don't think a lot of people are really going to be picking up this deck. Well, at least that's one reason. The other reason is going to be Astronaut's Altar itself, where the card itself is fine, except that they're currently $13 each. Well, I guess 13 ticks, but a tick is about $1. So $13 for 1 copy, and you're going to need 4 of them for the deck. And I don't think I'm going to be the only one avoiding this deck for budget reasons. So I think at first this combo isn't going to be very popular given the low number of people that will probably run this deck. I think the only way this deck becomes popular is in a few weeks or so, if this combo really proves itself to be very strong and does very well in leagues and challenges. I think that's really the only way we're going to start to see the numbers increase. But until that happens, I don't think we'll be seeing much of this combo to start out. And if it turns out to be something like Official Brands, where it's a good deck, maybe not top tier, but it's still a good deck, it'll pop up with a 5-0 every now and again. I think it'll have its players, but they'll be pretty dedicated and you just won't run into the combo too often. Those are my thoughts on Myr Retriever and the Myr Retriever combo deck. The next two reprints I'm going to talk about together because they do pretty much go into the same deck, and that is Bone Picker and Cast Down. So between Myr Retriever, Bone Picker, and Cast Down, these are pretty much the only downshifts that I have heard talked about, and I am especially excited for Cast Down. Well, I've already been playing with Cast Down, but it's a really good card. I've been really liking it because it's finally we have a non-conditional answer to creatures. I don't have to run Doomblade and worry about running into a black deck. I don't have to run Soul Reap and worry about running into a green deck. We have a non-conditional answer. Mostly, if anyone tries to argue that there are legendary creatures in Pauper, then whatever. No one plays them because they are horrible, and Cast Down answers everything else. And I think we're far more likely to run into black decks, at least for the next couple weeks or so, than any other deck, given that Cast Down and Bone Picker are now legal. People have been asking for Bone Picker for quite a while now, and it actually happened. I've seen people trying to build a type of morbid mid-range deck, and Bone Picker combined with Blood Pet means that you can get a 3/2 flying Death Touch down on turn 1, which is really good. So Bone Picker does enable a new style of deck with the morbid mid-range that people have been trying to build. I don't think it's going to be the most optimal build, as mid-range does tend to struggle in Pauper. We'll talk more about that later. But Cast Down is going to be the one that sees so much play. Mono black control, people might start picking back up again just to try this out. And really just any deck that runs black kill spells is going to receive a really good new toy with Cast Down. I'm really looking forward with it. It feels great to finally have an answer that catches pretty much everything, and I've been greatly enjoying playing with these two cards. I think Bone Picker is at a really good spot where it's a strong creature. You definitely have to watch out for it, but it's not going to be overpowered. It's not broken. It's just a good solid statted creature, and the Death Touch means that it can still trade into opposing large creatures, and that's nice too. So I do want to take some time to talk about cards that I feel like haven't been talked about as much, but definitely should. When I saw that Abrade was being downshifted, I was really excited for it. One, it's another artifact answer, and two, it's a flexible artifact answer. So this, I think, is going to go in so many sideboards, and I think it's just going to be a really good answer overall for the format, especially against Affinity, as you can destroy any artifact or deal 3 damage to Atog, forcing your opponent to sacrifice an artifact to then save the Atog. And anytime you can force your opponent to burn something to save the Atog is going to be good. Yeah, I really like Abrade. It's going to be a really good answer, really good sideboard card. I have seen some people talk about Crib Swap. I don't know about this one. It is an exile effect that doesn't require 3 white or 3 black or any comedy, whatever, it's hybrid, unmake. And I really don't know. It might see some fringe play, but I just don't really see the need for an exile right now. Maybe this is the answer to the Myr Retrievers, but in that case, if they have Ashnon's Altera, they can just sacrifice to casting. What? Okay, the point is, I don't really know how much of an impact. I've seen some people talk about Crib Swap. However, a card that I'm actually really excited for that I've not seen anyone talk about is Kazol's Toll Collector. And I don't think this is going to be a new tier 1 deck, but it could definitely be like a tier 2, tier 1.5, one of those fringe decks that you might see 5-0 every once in a while if they get super lucky with their league run. But with Kazul's Toll Collector, it really enables an equipment pseudo Voltron kind of Bogles style deck. And the fact that we also got Golem Skin Gauntlets only enables this further, as with Kazul's Toll Collector, you no longer have to pay equip costs. The fact that the Toll Collector can equip them himself for 0 mana, and the fact that the Golem Skin Gauntlets is going to give you a lot of power, I think it could be a super fun deck to try out. The big weakness is going to definitely be creature removal, especially with Cast Down being legal, and everyone's going to be wanting to try that out. So there are a couple equipments that give Shroud with Whisper Silk Cloak and the Stealth Suit. And the cool thing with Kazul's Toll Collector is if you equip this to Kazul and Kazul has Shroud, normally with other creatures you wouldn't be able to equip anything else on unless you took the Shroud off. But since Kazul's Toll Collector is an ability, you don't target the Toll Collector for the equip ability. So you can just go ahead and move equipments onto the Toll Collector despite it having Shroud. It protects it. And then, of course, the other thing is Edict effects. So the equipments with Living Weapon is going to be really good to get around that. And another downshift, Ancestral Blade, is also really good as it creates a 1/1 token. So even if you move the equipment onto Toll Collector, the token is still going to be there. So you have ways to get around targeted removal and Edict effects. It's definitely not going to be as strong as Boggles, but I feel like it could be still a fun deck to pilot. And of course, if the Toll Collector does end up dying, then all you have to do is play another one and you get to re-equip everything for free. Could be a fun deck. One quick little note, I do think there are some more interesting downshifts, but I don't think they're powerful enough. One of the first things I tried to build was something with charge counters, and that ended up just not working at all, or just being way too dirtily and slow. So I don't think that's really going to happen, but I think we got some really cool downshifts. I'm really looking forward to how they play, and looking at it, I don't think there's going to be anything that really breaks Pauper. The only thing I'm concerned about is the Myr Retriever combo, but like I said before, I don't think that's going to be popular right away. It's going to have to really prove itself to be a top tier deck before a lot of people really start buying into it. But if it's not a top tier deck, if it ends up being like a tier 1.5 or tier 2, then I don't think we're going to be running into the combo very often. So now I do want to take some time to talk about where I think the meta itself is going. Especially with the addition of Bone Picker, I do see a lot of mid-range decks that people are trying to make work, and they're doing a good job, except I think it's obvious for anyone that's gone up against this deck, but Tron is definitely not dead. Tron still exists, and I think Tron is actually still really good. I'm not sure if it's quite as strong as it used to be, but ironically, given Bone Picker and the mid-range decks that people are starting to come up with, Tron eats mid-range decks alive. So ironically enough, if the mid-range decks get popular, then Tron is actually in a better spot than it was before the bans, given the meta shift around, and the fact that the only deck that could really compete with the late game resources with those blue decks that were using Mystic Sanctuary no longer exists. So Tron is the undisputed king of the late game. No deck can come close to it, and it can go ahead and use Stonehorn Dignitary to its heart's content to stop these mid-range decks from winning. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Tron. I've seen a few people play it, and it seems really good, and people can still hit Tron very consistently. I think the only reason why people haven't really been talking about it too much is the fact that we just got these downshifts, and not a lot of people are playing it, given that Expedition map was banned. And I think once the bans and the downshifts settle down a little bit and we see a meta stabilize, then Tron could very well be back on top, but I could also be wrong. So only time will tell with that. But I think it does mean that people really want mid-range decks to work, and Tron is just more than happy to see people try to make those decks work. So that's pretty much all that I have for right now. I think the downshifts are really cool. We could see a few new decks pop up from them. Beware of Tron, and If you have any questions for me, let me know, and I'll answer them in my 100 subscriber video. Very excited about that. But anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. But now, if you'll excuse me, I don't really have a joke, and I just need to eat some breakfast. Bye!